Hey Dreamweavers, welcome back. I have a quick message for you this morning. I already just posted a reading for you, so do check that out. I was sitting here thinking about you and your counterpart, your divine counterpart, and how, we talk about twin flames, and twin flames aren't as spectacular and fabulous as we think they are. Like, it's not about all love and light. It's a lot about, your twin flame is a lot about the darkness. It's about the other side of you and how you reflect things back to each other. And if you are with your divine counterpart, you know that you have reflected things to them just like you do for everyone else. Like, you're the mirror and they're your mirror. And until you realize that about each other, there's conflict. There's conflict within the relationship, right? Because you have to, once you realize that this is your divine counterpart, that's the first part to it. But seeing the mirror, because no one wants to see the mirror. It's like, they say narcissist. A narcissist will fight you tooth and nail for reflecting the mirror of their shadow back to them, right? And I heard someone call it a black mirror, but I don't know. But like, you are reflecting their shadow back to them. And when you're with your divine counterpart, you are both reflecting that back to each other. So let me give you an example. And I'm going to use my husband for an example because I feel like he's my divine counterpart. And I know that he's told me he feels like I'm his divine counterpart. And we've been through a lot. But we're not here to talk about my story. I just want to give you an example of what that might look like. So when my husband started doing work on himself for some things, I think it was for overgiving. He had been going to therapy, and he had been learning how to assert himself and saying no, right? And so had I. But there's, what you start to find out is there's different stages of saying no, because saying no to a parent, or saying no to a friend, or saying no to a stranger, it feels different in your body when you start to do it. And holding that boundary feels different depending on the relationship that you've grown in with that person, the relationship dynamic that you have with that person. So I had a relationship, I'm not going to say where it was, but I watched him as he said no to people. And at first, I didn't understand. I didn't understand why he was being so tough, why it seemed like he was being so rough with some people around him. And the thing is that it's for the same reason we all do when we start to say no, because we feel like the more we say no at the beginning, the more people come in and they want to try to cross their boundaries. They want to see whether or not it's true, if you're going to really uphold that boundary. And of course,
hey Dreamweavers.
Oops, of course he did. That's your reading. That's too funny. That is your reading. That I am. Let me open that up. I just got done. I'm getting ready to upload that. So your reading's coming right up. But I had this other message for you. So anyhow, let me continue. So he was upholding this boundary, and it just seemed so harsh. And I was just like, how could you do that? And at the time, I had someone in my life who kept crossing my boundaries, right? And at the time, I kept giving them the benefit of the doubt. And this was someone really close to me, where the dynamic was really hard to break, because this was a dynamic that I had since I was a child. And the dynamic always was what it was. And I thought, and I was still to the point where I was thinking that I can manage this if I'm soft and I manage this with love and put more love into it, right? That, I can get the other person to see my view or see my point of view and approach me with love. But we all know that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So when that doesn't work, what do you have to do? You have to hold up your boundary. You have to start saying no. And sometimes you have to say no in a way that people aren't going to like. Sometimes that means stepping away. Sometimes that means saying, if you do this, this is what I'm going to do. And then if they do it, you actually follow through, because that's the only way they're going to believe you. So back to my husband and his story, but I was resistant to it because he was mirroring to me, right? As I was watching him set his boundary, he was mirroring back to me where I wasn't setting my boundaries. And I was trying to, at the time, project onto him where I was scared to set my boundaries. So I was like, no, like, why are you doing this? Like, you're being so harsh. And he's like, no, I need to set my boundaries. So, this is just a quick example. I mean, there are many other ways that we reflect things back and forth to each other as our divine counterpart, and we learn lessons from each other. So he said, and it's really ironic because really I thought at the time I was like, no, you have to, I was the one telling him, you have to set boundaries with people, you have to do this. But there was this one person that it was, there were still one or two people in my life where I was having trouble setting boundaries with. And I knew it, but I was still trying to use that softer side of me to do it. And it's a very odd thing, because setting boundaries is a really weird thing, because it really does depend on the dynamic that you have with the person, how much you're willing to give. But when you are giving so much that your health starts failing, your mental health is feeling destroyed, your self-esteem, like to the point where the person is coming in and they're destroying your self-esteem. They're disrespecting you because you're allowing them in. And so it feels like your self-respect is going down the tube. And having somebody mirror where you're doing that to you is really hard. And sometimes we want to run away, right? And I'm sure there's many things I've mirrored back to my husband, who is my divine counterpart, where he feels he doesn't want to see it. He doesn't want to see it, right? But the thing about your divine counterpart is that if you know you're meant for each other, you'll take a step back, and you're not going to run away. You might run away emotionally for a little bit so you can go within, right? You're willing at that point, you're willing to go within and take a look at where it's you that's not doing a thing, or where it's you that's really in your dark side. Because not setting a boundary, that's your shadow side doing that. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're not. You're just allowing people to come in and disrespect you. So anyhow, this was just an example. I wanted to come in and share about how divine counterparts reflect back with each other. And the only way to stay with each other is for each person to start. The only way it works, right, is if you both realize that you are divine counterparts, that you start to realize that you have each other's best interests at heart, and that there has to be self-reflection. And then there has to be grace also, because self-reflection is done at our own pace. And just because you're with your divine counterpart does not mean that you are ready to self-reflect. I can't talk. you're not doesn't mean that you're ready to self-reflect, because they are in that moment that they're mirroring it back to you. They may have to mirror things back to you a few times before you're really willing to look at it. So it takes being in a divine kind of twin flame, if you will, relationship, if you want to use that term, is not all sunshine and roses. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, people. And it's work that's well worth it if you can get to it, if everybody's willing to self-reflect and do the work. Because at the end of the day, even if you're with your counterpart, if you're not willing to do the work, they can reflect to you all day long. But eventually, if you're not ready to do the work, you're going to run. Because it's going to be too hard for you to stay and look at it without doing the self-reflection. Anyway, I just felt like I needed to come say that. I hope this message really found you well today, my beautiful Pisces. We work so hard, and everyone wants that divine connection. We're humans. So, right, we're here having this human experience, so we thrive on the human connection. And it's that divine counterpart is romanticized, right? Like in movies and things like that. And it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than that. And it's not, and there's a difference between mirroring back also and toxicity, right? It's a lot of learning. It's also a lot of learning how to let go of codependency, right? Because a lot of these relationships start a little bit in codependency because you both have wounds that you need to heal. That you will start to reflect where you need to heal back and forth to each other as you grow together. So a lot of patience is required if it's going to last, right? If you don't, and a lot of patience and self-reflection, right? And the hardest thing is when you're with someone, right, and they're not willing to self-reflect, because eventually you have, if you're mirroring it back to them and they're not self-reflecting so that they can ascend, you will eventually have to set the boundary and maybe walk away to save yourself. And that's the hard truth. So anyhow, drop me a comment. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know if you're with your divine counterpart, if you are, if you want to share, if you feel like you're with your divine counterpart, how that's going for you, what you think about the whole twin flame. Do you think it's all sunshine and roses? Maybe you think you feel that I'm wrong, but this is the message that I was called to come share with you from Spirit. If you have a different message, because I'm always willing to hear what others have to say about especially this particular topic, because so many of us want this. We want that connection. We want that type of romanticized love. But the truth is, are we ready to do the work to have that? So, all right, Dreamweavers, I am sending you love. Let's keep weaving that dream together. Let's keep growing together. And, keep reaching out to your ancestors, your angels, your higher beings, spirits of the white light. And, we'll keep sharing and listening for those messages between the lines so that we can continue to grow together. All right? Because what are we over here? We are the voice of the unseen. Love you, and see you in the next one.